Hello and welcome to the second video for Unit 1, Biology. And today we're going to talk about the characteristics of life. And you'll see that the screen is blank in the middle because I'd like you to pause the video for just a moment and think about what are some of the characteristics of life. Living things what? What do all living things do? So pause for just a moment and see if you can come up with a few answers. Okay, let's see if you got any of these answers. And number one, I'll just go through them briefly. Living things are organized. Living things reproduce. Living things grow. Living things adjust to their surroundings, and living things adapt and evolve. Now, before you get too hard on yourself, perhaps you actually answered some of these and you just don't know it yet. So we're going to go through each one of them specifically and talk about them, and maybe you've put some of them in your list. So the first one, living things are organized. No, that does not mean that they have really neat file cabinets. It means that they're organized at a cellular level. All of their cells and all of their parts function together in a very orderly system. The cells are specialized in some way and work together in order to be organized and to function. Here's just an example. Here's an earthworm, and here is a picture of what that earthworm looks inside and how it is very, very organized. Number two, living things reproduce. That one's pretty straightforward. Anything that is alive will reproduce. Here we have some different pictures. Most of these are actually things you can recognize pretty easily, giraffes and penguins. Some of these, such as this one, this is a hydra, and it is exhibiting asexual reproduction, which is a little bit different. Here's some plants as well. And no matter what, all of these organisms do reproduce. You also have noticed this, I'm sure, but I'd like to mention it, that species must be the same in order to reproduce. So the definition of a species is a group of organisms that can interbreed and produce offspring. So that is actually the definition of a species. The third item on our list, all living things grow. And what this primarily is referring to is their development and the changes that take place during that organism's life from all the way up into adulthood. You'll notice that 10 years ago, you definitely were not quite like you are now. And probably in another 10 years, you will develop further and not be the same as you are today. So this process of development, whether it's a plant or a person or any organism, all organisms go through those changes in their life. Living things also adjust to their surroundings. That is something that all living things do. What are surroundings? Just another word for environment. Here we have the environment of an aquatic environment. We have a large school of fish. And there is some stimulus in this environment caused by this fish here. That's what stimulus is. It causes organisms to react. It is something that causes a reaction. A response would be what the organism, how it reacts to the stimulus. Here, the response of these fish is to move away. So the stimulus causes the response, and energy is what enables an organism to cause that change. Energy is very critical in order for organisms to adjust to their surroundings, obviously. Another item of note, homeostasis, that's down here really small, but it's an important concept. And you have probably already studied about how homeostasis is the regulation of an organism's internal environment. It allows the organism to maintain suitable living conditions internally. it's a really critical piece, and it's another way that organisms adjust to their surroundings. An example of this would be if you are out in the freezing cold, let's say it's 0 degrees. You do not have 0 degree internal temperature going on in you. Your body compensates and uses more energy, spends more fuel to allow you to maintain the 98.6 optimal temperature for your internal body. So homeostasis is also part of this. 5, living things adapt and evolve. So adaptation is something that is an inherited quality. It's something that comes from the previous generation. It can be a structure, a behavior, a process in an organism, and it allows an organism to respond to its environment and survive. The adaptation of white fur for this organism here, this Arctic fox, is probably something that came about because of the white environment that it lived in. It allows it to be more camouflaged and to more effectively be a good predator in its environment and to survive. Evolution, on the other hand, is a very gradual change within an entire species over a long period of time, which actually this adaptation could as well be an evolutionary change, since Arctic fox all have that white fur. If you're interested in advanced proficiency, be creative. Try to think of some things on your own. You could research different organisms, how they exhibit these 5 characteristics of life. You could do a lot of different things like that. So come up with some great idea and tell me about it in class. Thanks.